Standing in the conference room at our annual company retreat, I watched Charlotte, our CEO's 22-year-old daughter, point directly at me while holding her golden retriever's leash. "My dog is literally smarter than you," she announced to the entire room. Laughter erupted from my colleagues as I knelt down collecting the scattered presentation materials she had knocked over. I smiled politely, finished cleaning up her mess, and headed home early. What nobody knew was that I had just discovered something that would change everything. My name is Caitlin, and I had been working at TechFlow Dynamics for 3 years, pouring my heart and soul into every line of code I wrote. At 28, I was one of the most skilled software engineers in the company, yet somehow I remained invisible to upper management. While colleagues with half my experience climbed the corporate ladder, I stayed buried in the basement server room, creating the digital backbone that kept our entire operation running. The company retreat had been Robert Sterling's idea. Our CEO wanted to showcase TechFlow's innovative culture to potential investors before our biggest product launch ever. The oceanfront resort in Monterey should have been the perfect setting for celebrating our achievements, but instead it became the stage for my public humiliation. Charlotte Sterling had joined TechFlow 6 months earlier as Director of Innovation, a position created specifically for her, despite her complete lack of technical background. Her resume boasted a liberal arts degree from an expensive private college and a summer internship at her father's golf club. Yet somehow she had been assigned to oversee the most critical project in company history. FlowMind was supposed to revolutionize artificial intelligence in business applications. For 2 years, I had been developing its core algorithms, working 16-hour days and sacrificing weekends to perfect every function. The system could analyze market trends, predict consumer behavior, and optimize business strategies with unprecedented accuracy. It was my masterpiece, my contribution to the future of technology. But here was the twist that nobody else knew. I had been working directly with our Chief Technology Officer, Dr. Sarah Chen, under a strict non-disclosure agreement. While everyone assumed I was just another junior developer fixing bugs and updating databases, I was actually the lead architect behind FlowMind's revolutionary neural network. The NDA protected the project from corporate espionage, but it also meant I received none of the recognition for my groundbreaking work. Charlotte had been appointed as the public face of FlowMind, attending investor meetings and giving presentations about a system she barely understood. During our weekly project reviews, she would nod along as I explained complex algorithms, then immediately forget everything the moment she left the room. She treated our sessions like inconvenient obstacles between her real priorities, shopping social media, and planning weekend trips to her father's Napa Valley vineyard. The retreat presentation had been her idea. She wanted to demonstrate FlowMind's capabilities to the assembled investors, board members, and senior staff. What she did not know was that I had spent the previous week preparing a live demonstration that would showcase 3 years of innovation in a single breathtaking presentation. Instead, Charlotte had arrived with her golden retriever Bentley, claiming that pets were proven stress reducers in high-pressure environments. She had no presentation materials, no technical demonstrations, and no understanding of the product she was supposed to be promoting. When pressed for details by confused investors, she had deflected by making jokes about artificial intelligence being overrated and pointing to her dog as an example of natural intelligence. That was when she had spotted me setting up the backup presentation materials I had prepared, just in case something went wrong. Rather than acknowledge her lack of preparation, she had chosen to humiliate me in front of everyone who mattered in our industry. The laughter had stung, but what hurt more was the realization that Charlotte had been systematically undermining me for months. Every brilliant idea I shared in our private meetings somehow became her brilliant idea in public forums. Every breakthrough I achieved became another example of her innovative leadership. Every late night I spent perfecting our code became another data point proving her dedication to excellence. As I drove home from the retreat, my phone buzzed with notifications. The FlowMind launch was scheduled for Monday morning, just 72 hours away. Investors worth $300 million would be watching our presentation expecting to see revolutionary technology that would justify their massive financial commitment. What Charlotte did not realize was that her public humiliation had finally pushed me past my breaking point. For 3 years, I had been the invisible genius, making everyone else look brilliant. For 3 years, I had accepted crumbs while others feasted on the banquet of my achievements. But now, with the most important moment in company history approaching, I was done being invisible. The discovery I had made that morning would change everything. While reviewing security logs for routine maintenance, I had noticed unusual access patterns in our development servers. Someone had been copying files from restricted directories, accessing proprietary algorithms, and downloading complete code repositories without authorization. The digital fingerprints led to an employee account that should not have had that level of access. The account belonged to Charlotte Sterling. Sunday evening found me hunched over my home computer following digital breadcrumbs through layers of encrypted networks and hidden file transfers. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Charlotte had not just been stealing credit for my work, she had been literally stealing my work. For the past 6 weeks, every major component of FlowMind had been systematically copied to external drives and transmitted to encrypted email accounts. The recipients were not random hackers or foreign governments. They were executives at DataCorp, our biggest competitor in the artificial intelligence market. DataCorp had been struggling to develop their own AI platform for years. Their stock price had plummeted as investors lost confidence in their ability to compete with innovative companies like TechFlow. Suddenly, their struggles made perfect sense. Why spend millions on research and development when you could simply buy stolen technology from the inside? The financial records told a devastating story. Charlotte had received payments totaling $200,000 transferred through a complex network of cryptocurrency exchanges and offshore accounts. Each payment coincided perfectly with major breakthroughs in FlowMind development. Every algorithm I perfected, every optimization I discovered, every innovation I created had been sold to our competitors before the ink was even dry on my code. But the theft was only the beginning. As I dug deeper into Charlotte's digital activities, I uncovered a conspiracy that went far beyond simple corporate espionage. DataCorp was not just buying our technology, they were preparing to destroy us completely. Their plan was elegantly vicious. DataCorp would launch their own AI platform on Tuesday, exactly 24 hours after our FlowMind presentation. Their system would be identical to ours in every meaningful way, but with small improvements and modifications that would make our version look outdated and primitive. They had even hired our former marketing director, someone who knew our strategies and weaknesses better than anyone. The timing was no accident. DataCorp knew that TechFlow had invested everything in FlowMind. Our entire future depended on Monday's successful launch and the $300 million in funding it would generate. If we failed to secure those investments, we would face bankruptcy within 6 months. Charlotte had given DataCorp every piece of information they needed to guarantee our failure. She had provided detailed investor profiles, revealing which features would most impress specific funding partners. She had shared our marketing timeline, allowing DataCorp to position their announcement for maximum competitive impact. She had even copied our presentation slides, ensuring their version would address every point we planned to make, but with superior execution. The scope of her betrayal was breathtaking. This was not a crime of opportunity or a moment of weakness. Charlotte had been planning our destruction from the moment she joined the company. Her hiring had not been nepotism. It had been a calculated infiltration designed to steal our most valuable assets and destroy us from within. As Monday morning approached, I realized that Charlotte's theft had put 847 jobs at risk. These were not just statistics on a corporate balance sheet. They were real people with families' mortgages, children starting college, parents facing medical bills. Sarah in accounting was saving for her daughter's wedding. Marcus in security was working extra shifts to pay for his son's cancer treatments. Lisa in marketing had just bought her first house. All of them trusted that Monday's launch would secure their futures. None of them knew that their livelihoods had already been sold to the highest bidder by the boss's daughter, who thought my dog was smarter than me. But Charlotte had made one critical mistake. In her arrogance and contempt for technical details, she had overlooked the most important security feature I had built into FlowMind's architecture. Every file access, every code modification, every data transfer was automatically logged and encrypted on a distributed blockchain network that existed outside our main servers. Even if Charlotte destroyed every computer in our building, the complete record of her crimes would remain permanently preserved in an unalterable digital ledger that no one could delete or modify. Every stolen file, every unauthorized transfer, Every secret meeting with DataCorp executives had been automatically documented with timestamps, IP addresses, and digital signatures that would hold up in any court of law. Charlotte thought she was stealing from a naive young woman who was too weak to fight back. What she had actually done was create an unbreakable chain of evidence that would destroy not just her own future, but the entire criminal conspiracy she had helped orchestrate. The question was no longer whether I could prove her guilt. The question was how to use that proof most effectively to save my company, protect my colleagues, and ensure that justice was served for everyone who had been betrayed by someone they trusted. As I prepared for the most important day of my career, I realized that Charlotte's cruel words at the retreat had actually been a blessing in disguise. She had finally shown me exactly who she really was, and more importantly, she had shown me exactly who I needed to become. Monday morning arrived with gray skies and the kind of cold Pacific wind that cuts through even the thickest jacket. I arrived at TechFlow headquarters 2 hours before anyone else using my keycard to access the empty building that would soon determine our company's fate. The presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m. By 7, I was already in the main conference room connecting laptops to projectors and testing network connections for the 100th time. Everything had to be perfect. $300 million in potential investment hung in the balance, along with nearly 1,000 jobs and my own professional reputation. That was when I discovered Charlotte's final, most devastating betrayal. The FlowMind demonstration files had been corrupted. Not in a way that would be detected during routine testing, but with subtle, insidious modifications that would cause catastrophic failures during the most critical moments of our presentation. Charlotte had not just stolen our technology, she had sabotaged what remained to ensure our public humiliation. Every major algorithm contained carefully planted bugs that would trigger only under specific conditions. The neural network would crash when processing large datasets. The predictive models would generate obviously false results when analyzing market trends. The user interface would freeze whenever investors tried to interact with key features. To anyone watching, FlowMind would appear to be a completely dysfunctional system created by incompetent developers who had wasted millions of investor dollars on worthless technology. But the sabotage went deeper than corrupted code. Charlotte had also modified the presentation slides, inserting subtle errors in technical specifications and financial projections. She had altered our demo data to include impossible scenarios that would make our claims seem fraudulent. She had even changed the investor contact information, ensuring that follow-up communications would be delivered to fake email addresses controlled by DataCorp. The genius of her plan was its deniability. When FlowMind failed spectacularly during our presentation, Charlotte would be the first to express shock and disappointment. She would immediately call for an investigation into how such basic errors could have occurred. She would demand accountability from the technical team responsible for developing such obviously flawed software. And all the evidence would point directly at me. Charlotte had been building a case against me for weeks, creating a digital paper trail that portrayed me as an incompetent developer who had been covering up serious technical problems through lies and deception. She had forged emails showing me dismissing concerns about system stability. She had fabricated test results suggesting that I knew about critical bugs but chose to hide them from management. She had even created fake conversations where I allegedly admitted to selling technical information to outside parties. When the presentation failed, Charlotte would present this evidence to her father and the board of directors. I would be fired immediately for gross negligence and corporate sabotage. The company would face lawsuits from angry investors who had been deceived about FlowMind's capabilities. TechFlow's reputation would be destroyed, making it impossible to secure future funding or attract qualified employees. Within 6 months, the company would collapse into bankruptcy. DataCorp would acquire our assets for pennies on the dollar, gaining access to years of research and development while eliminating their primary competitor from the market. Charlotte would resign from TechFlow shortly before the acquisition, citing family stress and personal disappointment with the company's failure. She had already booked a first-class flight to Geneva for Tuesday afternoon, with connecting flights to several countries that did not have extradition treaties with the United States. Her cryptocurrency payments from DataCorp had been converted to precious metals and deposited in numbered Swiss bank accounts. She had purchased a luxury apartment in Monaco under an assumed identity, complete with forged documents that would allow her to disappear forever. But Charlotte had made one crucial error in her otherwise perfect plan. She had assumed that I was exactly what I appeared to be, a quiet, compliant employee who would accept defeat gracefully and fade away without causing trouble. She had no idea that I had been documenting every aspect of her criminal conspiracy for weeks. She did not know that my home security system had recorded her unauthorized visits to my apartment when she thought I was traveling for conferences. She was unaware that my personal laptop contained encrypted copies of every stolen file, every forged document, and every piece of evidence that would prove her guilt beyond any reasonable doubt. Most importantly, she had never suspected that I had allies within TechFlow who had been conducting their own investigation into suspicious activities around our most sensitive projects. Marcus Rivera had worked as night security at TechFlow for 3 years, but his quiet demeanor and unassuming appearance concealed an impressive background in federal law enforcement. Before taking the security position, he had spent 15 years as an FBI special agent, specializing in cybercrime and corporate espionage. He had joined TechFlow's security team not because he needed the job, but because he wanted to spend more time with his daughter Emily, who was receiving treatment for leukemia at a nearby children's hospital. For the past month, Marcus had been tracking unusual after-hours access to restricted areas of our building. His investigation had documented Charlotte's unauthorized entries into secure server rooms, her meetings with unknown individuals in the parking garage, and her attempts to access employee computers outside normal business hours. What Marcus had discovered would not only save Flowmine's launch presentation, but would also expose the largest corporate espionage conspiracy in our industry's history. As 8 a.m. approached and other employees began arriving for the most important day in company history, I realized that Charlotte's attempt to frame me for her own crimes would actually provide the perfect opportunity to spring a trap that would catch not just her, but everyone involved in the conspiracy that threatened to destroy everything we had built. The boss's daughter was about to learn that intelligence could not be measured by cruelty or purchased with betrayal. Real intelligence was about seeing patterns, understanding consequences, and having the courage to fight for what was right, even when the odds seemed impossible. The boardroom began filling with investors at 9:30 a.m., their expensive suits and confident conversations creating an atmosphere of anticipation that made my stomach churn with nervous energy. I watched from the back of the room as Charlotte made her entrance perfectly dressed in a designer blazer and carrying a leather portfolio that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She moved through this crowd like a seasoned politician, shaking hands with venture capitalists and exchanging air kisses with tech industry luminaries. To everyone else, she appeared to be the confident young executive ready to present her revolutionary artificial intelligence platform. Only I could see the subtle signs of anxiety in the way she checked her phone every few seconds and glanced toward the exit doors with the look of someone planning an escape route. Robert Sterling took his place at the head of the conference table, beaming with paternal pride as he introduced his daughter to the assembled investors. Charlotte has been the driving force behind Flowmind since day one. He announced, his voice carrying the conviction of a man who truly believed his own words. Her innovative vision and technical leadership have created something that will transform how businesses understand and interact with artificial intelligence. The irony was almost unbearable. Charlotte's father was genuinely proud of what he thought were her achievements, completely unaware that his daughter had been systematically destroying his life's work from the inside. He had no idea that the company he had built from nothing was about to become collateral damage in his daughter's elaborate betrayal. At 9:45, Dr. Sarah Chen, our Chief Technology Officer, approached me with a concerned expression. "Caitlin, we need to talk," she whispered, gesturing toward a small conference room adjacent to the main presentation space. "There are some irregularities in the Flowmind code that we need to address before the demonstration." Inside the private room, Sarah's composed facade cracked, revealing the deep worry that had been building for hours. "I ran final diagnostics this morning and found multiple corruption points in critical system functions," she explained, her voice tight with stress. "The neural network modules are completely unstable, the predictive algorithms are returning impossible values, and the user interface is crashing during basic operations." I took a deep breath, knowing that this moment would determine whether I remained silent, and watched our company burn, or took the enormous risk of revealing everything I had discovered. Sarah, what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but I need you to trust me completely. For the next 10 minutes, I laid out the entire conspiracy, showing her encrypted files documenting Charlotte's data theft, her communications with DataCorp executives, and her systematic sabotage of our most important project. Sarah's expression shifted from skepticism to horror as the scope of the betrayal became clear. "We have to stop the presentation," Sarah said, immediately reaching for her phone to contact Robert Sterling. "If Flowmind crashes in front of these investors, it will destroy not just our funding, but our entire reputation." "Wait," I said, placing my hand gently on her arm. "I have a better idea. What if we let Charlotte proceed with her sabotaged presentation, but we use a completely different version of Flowmind that she doesn't know exists?" Sarah's eyes widened with understanding. "The blockchain-secured backup system you developed for disaster recovery." "Exactly. Charlotte thinks she corrupted our only working version, but the real Flowmind has been safely stored on distributed servers that she never knew existed. We can run the demonstration using the uncorrupted code while her sabotage attempts are automatically logged as evidence of her criminal activity." Before Sarah could respond, Marcus Rivera appeared in the doorway, his security uniform and quiet demeanor making him nearly invisible among the crowd of executives and investors in expensive business attire. "Excuse me, Dr. Chen, but I need to speak with you and Caitlin immediately. It's about Charlotte Sterling and some activities that I've been investigating." Marcus closed the door behind him and activated a small electronic device that would prevent any surveillance equipment from recording our conversation. "My name is Marcus Rivera, and I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. For the past 3 months, I've been conducting an undercover investigation into corporate espionage activities involving multiple technology companies in Silicon Valley." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Marcus, the quiet night security guard who always smiled and asked about my weekend plans, was actually a federal agent who had been watching Charlotte's criminal activities unfold in real time. DataCorp has been systematically stealing intellectual property from at least 7 different companies over the past 2 years. Marcus continued, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to briefing senior government officials. "They've recruited inside sources at each target organization, paying substantial sums for proprietary technology that they then use to undercut their competitors in the marketplace." Marcus pulled out a tablet containing hundreds of pages of evidence collected during his investigation. Screenshots of encrypted communications between Charlotte and DataCorp executives. Financial records showing cryptocurrency payments totaling far more than the $200,000 I had discovered. Video surveillance footage of Charlotte meeting with known corporate espionage operatives in hotel lobbies and restaurant parking lots. "Charlotte Sterling is not just selling your technology," Marcus explained. "She's the West Coast coordinator for an international network of corporate spies that has stolen an estimated $800 million worth of intellectual property over the past 5 years. Her arrest will trigger a coordinated takedown of the entire operation across 3 countries. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. Charlotte was not just a spoiled rich kid looking for easy money. She was a professional criminal who had infiltrated TechFlow as part of a sophisticated international operation designed to steal American technology and transfer it to competing organizations around the world. "Why haven't you arrested her already?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because we need her to complete one final transaction that will provide evidence against the top-level coordinators of the network," Marcus replied. "Today's presentation is supposed to be the trigger for a massive transfer of additional Flowmind components to DataCorp's international partners. If we arrest Charlotte before that transfer occurs, the network leaders will disappear and continue their operations elsewhere." Marcus looked directly at me with an expression that combined professional respect with genuine admiration. "Caitlin, your documentation of Charlotte's activities has provided crucial evidence that will allow us to dismantle this entire network. But we need your help to set a trap that will catch not just Charlotte, but everyone involved in the conspiracy." The plan Marcus outlined was audacious and dangerous. We would allow Charlotte to proceed with her sabotaged presentation, which would fail exactly as she had planned. But instead of destroying TechFlow, the failure would trigger an emergency protocol that would expose Charlotte's crimes to everyone in the room while simultaneously providing evidence that would lead to arrests across multiple countries. "The risk is enormous," Marcus warned. If anything goes wrong, Charlotte could destroy critical evidence or alert her co-conspirators that their network has been compromised. But if we succeed, we'll not only save TechFlow, but also protect dozens of other companies from similar attacks. As 10 a.m. approached, and the most important presentation in our company's history was about to begin, I realized that Charlotte's cruel words at the retreat had set in motion a chain of events that would expose one of the largest corporate espionage operations in American business history. The boss's daughter was about to discover that intelligence was not about humiliating others or stealing their achievements. Real intelligence was about building something meaningful, protecting the people you cared about, and having the courage to fight for justice, even when the stakes seemed impossibly high. At exactly 10 a.m., Robert Sterling called the presentation to order, his voice carrying the enthusiasm of a man who believed he was about to witness his daughter's greatest professional triumph. The conference room was packed with venture capitalists, tech industry executives, and potential strategic partners whose collective net worth exceeded several $billion. Charlotte took her position at the front of the room, connecting her laptop to the main projection system, with movements that appeared confident but carried subtle signs of nervousness that only I could recognize. She had no idea that Marcus, Sarah, and I had spent the previous hour implementing a sophisticated trap that would expose her crimes in front of the most influential people in our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlotte began, her voice projecting the kind of polished confidence that comes from years of private school debate teams and country club presentations. Today, I'm excited to share FlowMind, an artificial intelligence platform that will fundamentally transform how businesses understand and interact with their customers. For the first 10 minutes, Charlotte's presentation proceeded exactly as she had planned. She discussed market opportunities, competitive advantages, and revenue projections with the smooth delivery of someone who had practiced her talking points hundreds of times. The investors nodded, appreciatively impressed by her apparent command of complex technical concepts. But then came the moment for the live demonstration, when Charlotte would attempt to showcase FlowMind's capabilities using the sabotaged code that was designed to fail catastrophically in front of everyone who mattered most to our company's future. "Now I'd like to show you FlowMind in action," Charlotte announced, clicking on the application icon that would launch what she believed was the corrupted version of my software. This demonstration will illustrate how our artificial intelligence can analyze complex business scenarios and provide actionable insights in real time. The application launched smoothly, displaying the sleek interface I had designed to make advanced AI accessible to non-technical users. Charlotte's expression showed a moment of confusion, as this was not the behavior she expected from software she had carefully sabotaged to crash immediately upon startup. She proceeded with its first demonstration, asking FlowMind to analyze market trends in the renewable energy sector. Instead of generating the impossible results she had programmed into the corrupted version, the system produced a detailed, accurate analysis, complete with supporting data visualizations and actionable recommendations. Charlotte's confusion deepened, but she maintained her composure and moved to the second demonstration. She requested a predictive model for consumer behavior in the emerging electric vehicle market. Once again, FlowMind performed flawlessly, generating insights that impressed several investors enough to prompt spontaneous questions about licensing opportunities. By the third demonstration, Charlotte's carefully constructed facade was beginning to crack. She had expected FlowMind to crash spectacularly, providing her with the opportunity to blame technical incompetence while positioning herself as the disappointed leader who had been let down by her development team. Instead, the system was performing exactly as designed, showcasing years of innovative work that she could not explain or understand. What Charlotte did not realize was that we were not running her sabotaged version of FlowMind. Marcus had used his FBI credentials to access the blockchain-secured backup system, loading the original uncorrupted code while simultaneously documenting every aspect of Charlotte's attempted sabotage as federal evidence. The real demonstration was not FlowMind's artificial intelligence capabilities. It was a carefully orchestrated exposure of Charlotte's criminal activities, broadcast live to everyone who needed to understand exactly what had been happening inside our company for the past 6 months. As Charlotte struggled to explain technical details, she did not understand, Marcus activated a secondary presentation system that began displaying evidence of her crimes on a wall-mounted screen visible to everyone in the room. Bank records showing cryptocurrency payments from DataCorp. Surveillance footage of Charlotte accessing restricted computer systems after hours. Intercepted communications discussing the theft and sale of proprietary technology. The reaction from the assembled investors was immediate and devastating. Conversations stopped mid-sentence as people realized they were witnessing the exposure of a massive corporate espionage operation. Several venture capitalists began making phone calls to their legal teams, while others started photographing the evidence displays for their own investigative purposes. Robert Sterling's face went through a progression of emotions that was painful to witness. Confusion gave way to disbelief, then to horror as he realized that his own daughter had been systematically destroying everything he had spent decades building. The betrayal was not just professional, but deeply personal, striking at the foundation of trust between a father and child. Charlotte's response was swift and desperate. Realizing that her crimes had been exposed, she abandoned any pretense of innocence and immediately began implementing her escape plan. She claimed that the evidence was fabricated, that she was being framed by disgruntled employees who resented her success, and that the entire presentation was an elaborate conspiracy to damage her reputation. But her denials were undermined by the overwhelming documentation of her criminal activities. Marcus had been building a federal case for months, collecting evidence that would withstand scrutiny from the most experienced defense attorneys. Every stolen file, every secret meeting, every cryptocurrency transaction had been meticulously documented with timestamps, digital signatures, and corroborating witnesses. As FBI agents entered the conference room to place Charlotte under arrest, she made one final desperate attempt to destroy evidence by accessing her laptop and triggering a program designed to wipe all digital records of her criminal activities. What she did not realize was that Marcus had anticipated this possibility and had already secured copies of everything she was trying to delete. The arrest of Robert Sterling's daughter in front of the most important investors in Silicon Valley should have been the end of TechFlow dynamics. The scandal should have destroyed our reputation, eliminated our funding opportunities, and forced us into immediate bankruptcy. Instead, something remarkable happened. The investors who had come to evaluate Flowmine's potential realized they had witnessed something far more valuable than a software demonstration. They had seen a company with the integrity to expose criminal activity within its own leadership, the technical sophistication to protect its intellectual property from sophisticated attacks, and the moral courage to choose justice over short-term financial gain. Within an hour of Charlotte's arrest, TechFlow had received preliminary funding commitments exceeding $400 million, nearly double what we had originally sought. The investors were not just buying into our technology, they were investing in an organization that had proven its values under the most extreme circumstances. But the story was far from over. Charlotte's arrest was just the beginning of a federal investigation that would ultimately expose the largest corporate espionage network in American business history, protecting countless other companies from similar attacks, while ensuring that justice was served for everyone who had been betrayed by people they trusted. The hours following Charlotte's arrest unfolded like scenes from a crime thriller, except this was real life, and the consequences would affect hundreds of innocent people whose only mistake had been trusting someone who viewed their loyalty as a weakness to be exploited. By noon, FBI agents had secured TechFlow's offices and begun the complex process of analyzing thousands of files to determine the full scope of the espionage operation. Marcus had shed his security guard uniform for a crisp federal agent's badge, coordinating with teams of cybercrime specialists who were tracing digital evidence across multiple countries. The magnitude of Charlotte's betrayal continued to expand as investigators uncovered layer after layer of criminal activity. She had not just stolen Flowmine's source code. She had systematically photographed confidential documents, recorded private meetings, and even installed surveillance equipment in our conference rooms to capture proprietary discussions between executives and potential partners. Her laptop contained detailed profiles of every TechFlow employee, including personal financial information that could be used for blackmail or recruitment into the espionage network. She had identified colleagues with gambling debts, family medical expenses, or other financial pressures that might make them vulnerable to corruption. Several employees had already been approached with offers to sell company information, though none had accepted Charlotte's recruitment attempts. But the most shocking discovery came when investigators accessed Charlotte's encrypted communications with her handlers at DataCorp. The corporate espionage network extended far beyond technology theft. They had been manipulating stock prices, sabotaging competitor products, and even influencing government contracts through strategically placed inside sources. Charlotte's role in the conspiracy was more significant than anyone had realized. She was not just selling stolen technology. She was coordinating attacks against multiple American companies while reporting directly to foreign intelligence operatives who were using corporate espionage as a form of economic warfare. The international implications were staggering. DataCorp was revealed to be a front organization for a state-sponsored operation designed to steal American intellectual property and transfer advanced technology to countries that were considered potential military adversaries. Charlotte had been working for foreign agents who viewed her father's company not as a business competitor, but as a strategic target in a larger conflict between nations. Robert Sterling was devastated by revelations about his daughter's crimes, but he was equally determined to ensure that TechFlow survived the scandal and continued to protect American technological innovation. He immediately implemented new security protocols, hired independent auditors to verify the integrity of all company systems, and began working with federal investigators to identify other potential infiltration targets. The response from our industry was overwhelmingly supportive. Companies that might have been expected to capitalize on TechFlow's vulnerability instead offered assistance and collaboration. They understood that Charlotte's attack was not an isolated incident, but part of a systematic threat to American technological leadership that required a coordinated defensive response. Within 48 hours of the arrest, TechFlow had received offers of strategic partnership from 3 major tech companies, additional funding commitments from venture capital firms, and consulting contracts from government agencies that needed our expertise in detecting and preventing similar attacks. The FlowMind platform became more valuable than ever, not just for its artificial intelligence capabilities, but as a proven system that could resist sophisticated sabotage attempts. Our investors realized they were not just funding a software company. They were supporting a technological fortress that could protect American innovation from foreign theft. Meanwhile, Charlotte's legal situation deteriorated rapidly as federal prosecutors built a case that included charges of corporate espionage, wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit economic terrorism. Her cryptocurrency accounts were frozen, her offshore assets were seized, and her planned escape to Switzerland was blocked by international law enforcement cooperation. The evidence against her was overwhelming and undeniable. Marcus had collected thousands of hours of surveillance footage, hundreds of intercepted communications, and detailed financial records that documented every aspect of her criminal activities. Her own laptop contained a complete confession in the form of detailed reports she had submitted to her foreign handlers. But perhaps the most damning evidence came from her co-conspirators at DataCorp, who began cooperating with federal investigators in exchange for reduced sentences. They provided details about the international network's operations, identified other compromised companies, and revealed the sophisticated methods used to recruit and manage inside sources. The scope of the investigation expanded to include technology companies across the United States, Europe, and Asia. Dozens of arrests were made simultaneously as law enforcement agencies coordinated a global response to what was recognized as one of the most serious threats to international economic security in decades. Charlotte's arrest had triggered the exposure of an entire shadow economy built on stolen technology and corrupted loyalty. Her attempt to destroy TechFlow had instead led to the protection of countless other companies and the preservation of American technological advantages in critical industries. As the immediate crisis began to stabilize, I found myself in an unexpected position of leadership and responsibility. The quiet software engineer who had been invisible to management for 3 years was suddenly recognized as the person whose technical expertise and moral courage had prevented a devastating attack on American business innovation. Robert Sterling offered me Charlotte's former position, along with equity in the company, and the resources to build a new cybersecurity division focused on protecting intellectual property from sophisticated threats. It was an opportunity that would transform my career and allow me to ensure that other companies would not fall victim to the kind of betrayal we had experienced. But more importantly, I realized that Charlotte's cruel words at the company retreat had actually revealed something profound about intelligence loyalty and the values that truly matter in life. Her attempt to humiliate me had ultimately led to her own destruction, while my commitment to protecting the people and principles I cared about had created opportunities I never could have imagined. The boss's daughter had learned that intelligence could not be measured by cruelty or purchased with betrayal. And I had learned that sometimes the greatest victories come not from seeking revenge against those who wrong you, but from staying true to your values, even when doing so requires enormous personal courage and sacrifice. 6 months after Charlotte's arrest, TechFlow Dynamics had transformed from a company fighting for survival into one of the most respected and successful organizations in Silicon Valley. The FlowMind platform had exceeded every performance projection, generating revenues that surpassed our most optimistic forecasts while establishing new industry standards for artificial intelligence applications in business environments. The federal investigation had concluded with convictions that sent shockwaves through the corporate espionage community. Charlotte received a sentence of 25 years in federal prison for her role in what prosecutors described as the largest technology theft operation in American history. Her co-conspirators at DataCorp faced similar sentences, while the foreign intelligence operatives who had coordinated the network were expelled from the United States and faced international criminal charges. But the most satisfying aspect of justice was not the punishment of those who had committed crimes against us. It was the protection and prosperity that resulted for everyone who had remained loyal to our company and our values during the most difficult period in our history. Every TechFlow employee received substantial bonuses from the success of FlowMind, along with equity stakes that reflected their contributions to our recovery and growth. Sarah, in accounting, was able to pay for her daughter's dream wedding, while also establishing a college fund for her future grandchildren. Marcus returned to the FBI with a commendation for exceptional service, but not before ensuring that our security systems could resist any future infiltration attempts. Robert Sterling had made the difficult decision to step back from day-to-day operations, allowing a new generation of leadership to guide TechFlow into the future while he focused on healing from the personal betrayal he had experienced. He established a foundation dedicated to identifying and supporting young technologists whose innovations might make them targets for corporate espionage or foreign intelligence operations. As for me, I had accepted the position of Chief Technology Officer, taking over Dr. Sarah Chen's responsibilities when she was recruited to lead a new government initiative focused on protecting American technological advantages in critical industries. My first major decision was to establish a comprehensive mentorship program that would ensure no talented employee would ever again be overlooked or undervalued because they lacked connections or political skills. The program paired experienced professionals with promising newcomers, creating networks of support that transcended traditional corporate hierarchies. We implemented anonymous suggestion systems that allowed employees to report concerns or propose innovations without fear of retaliation. Most importantly, we established clear criteria for advancement based on merit and contribution rather than family relationships or personal connections. But the most meaningful change came from Charlotte herself writing to me from federal prison where she was serving her sentence. Her letter was not an attempt to justify her crimes or seek sympathy for her situation. Instead, it was a genuine acknowledgement of the destruction she had caused and a request for forgiveness that showed real understanding of the pain she had inflicted on innocent people. "I spent my entire life believing that intelligence meant proving I was better than others," she wrote. "I thought success meant taking what I wanted without regard for the consequences. I convinced myself that people like you were obstacles to be eliminated rather than human beings deserving respect and consideration." Her time in prison had given her the opportunity to study computer science seriously for the first time in her life. She was working toward a degree that would allow her to contribute something positive to the world when her sentence was completed. She had also begun teaching basic technology skills to other inmates using the knowledge she was gaining to help women who had never had access to educational opportunities. I realize now that true intelligence is not about being smarter than other people. her letter continued. It's about using your abilities to build something meaningful, to protect people you care about, and to make the world a little bit better than you found it. You demonstrated all of those qualities when you could have easily chosen revenge instead of justice. Charlotte's transformation did not excuse her crimes or eliminate the consequences of her choices, but it offered hope that even people who had committed terrible betrayals could learn from their mistakes and find ways to contribute positively to society. The story of Flowmine's success and Charlotte's downfall became a case study taught in business schools and cybersecurity programs across the country. Students learned about the importance of protecting intellectual property, the dangers of insider threats, and the value of maintaining strong ethical standards even under extreme pressure. But the lesson that resonated most deeply with audiences was not about technology or security. It was about the fundamental difference between intelligence used to harm others and intelligence used to protect and build. Charlotte's attempt to prove her superiority through cruelty had led to her own destruction, while my commitment to defending what I believed in had created opportunities and protections that benefited everyone around me. The company retreat where Charlotte had humiliated me seemed like a lifetime ago, but I still remembered the moment when she pointed at me and declared that her dog was smarter than I was. The laughter from colleagues who had witnessed my public embarrassment had stung deeply, but it had also motivated me to prove my worth through actions rather than words. In the end, intelligence was not about who could deliver the most cutting insults or who could manipulate others most effectively. Real intelligence was about seeing problems before they became disasters, protecting people who could not protect themselves, and having the courage to do what was right, even when doing so required significant personal sacrifice. Charlotte had measured intelligence by her ability to take what others had built. I had measured it by my ability to build something that could not be taken away. Her approach had led to federal prison and the destruction of her family relationships. Mine had led to professional success, personal fulfillment, and the satisfaction of knowing that my work had protected hundreds of innocent people from becoming victims of corporate espionage. As I stood in the same conference room where Charlotte had once humiliated me, now filled with employees celebrating our latest product launch, I realized that her cruel words had actually been a gift. They had shown me exactly who I needed to become and given me the motivation to fight for values that mattered more than personal recognition or financial reward. The boss's daughter had taught me that true intelligence was not about proving your superiority over others. It was about using your abilities to create something meaningful, protect people you care about, and leave the world a little bit better than you found it. Have you ever faced a situation where someone tried to make you feel small or insignificant, only to discover that their cruelty actually revealed their own weaknesses rather than yours? I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video to help others find it, subscribing to stay connected with future stories, and sharing it with anyone who might benefit from understanding that real intelligence comes from building others up rather than tearing them down. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that your true worth is never determined by those who try to diminish you, but by the positive impact you choose to make in the world around you.